Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. This is Michael Menino, and welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who have their experience and tips and tricks that they share with you, the audience. And today, zooming from the beautiful island of Francisco, where are you at right now?
I'm on my way to Galapagos.
On your way to Galapagos Island.
Yes. But I'm in Naples right now.
Francisco. And how do you pronounce your last name? Zalles, like the diamonds?
That would be so cool, right? But no, it's
Yeah,
Zalles.
it would be cool.
Yeah.
Zalles.
I actually walked into a store once with my ID just to show them just how close I was.
How far off from the spelling is that? I would like to take
one
ownership
L
of that name.
One L. Yeah, and it turns out they're a family from Russia, and so we come from Spain, so not same family. Maybe not.
Gotcha. So we were talking earlier off camera, and I had to narrow it down to the 8 things that he does. Galapagos Islands, a professor of economy in a college out of country.
Yeah,
do me a favor. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself in a quick little bio and what you're doing.
Okay, so started a career in finance, commercial banking early. Brady Bond era, pre-Brady Bond era, if that makes any sense to anybody. It moved through dollarization of Ecuador to Wall Street, from Wall Street to entrepreneurship, through entrepreneurship now to philanthropy in the Galapagos Islands, where we're promoting conservation from an anthropocentric point of view. Yes, as an economist, I'm known for dollarization, which changed the monetary landscape. And as I run the undergraduate business program at Universidad de las Hespérides out of the Canary Islands in Spain. Please look us up. We have English programs as well, and
Nice.
it's very, very it's great. It's online as well, so you can do everything from. We have students from all over the world, and it's really a fantastic roster of economists. So that's a incredible success story unto its own, which is not mine. It's just but yeah, I am dedicated more and more of my time to conservation in the Galapagos Islands, and turn that into receiving funds from others to be able to continue the mission.
Gotcha. What is the concern or the needs over there?
So in the Galapagos, that's great, but the philanthropy, what I'm trying to say is the philanthropy business is also a business, right? The needs in Galapagos are infinite. The problem is that they don't have enough private property rights. So ships sink, for instance, because they don't have capital accumulation. And they're very interesting because their population is new. They have no Aborigines. So they're the best world's laboratory, not just for natural things like evolution and species, but also for a social development of a nascent society. So that's what we're bringing in. That's the element that we're introducing into the Galapagos, which is very exciting because we're getting, putting Galapagos on the map, but in a different sort of macro world, which is cool.
Nice, very nice. In that space, there's a lot of people that try and do what you do. What do you do? So it's hard in any space that you do. What sets you apart from everybody else in that space? Because it's hard to define you, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, a restless mind, which can be a double-edged sword. I was recently reading very interesting literature on the correlation between hypomania and success, the capacity to think yourself into, this is a winner. I've already won, so how could I lose? Which can be a dangerous thing. I mean, that's a fine line, right? I think that over the years, one tends to hone in what energy, what one decides to put one's energy in. I have made a series of mistakes painful mistakes, which have led me, amongst other things, to say, you know what, I want to dedicate my time to conservation in the Galapagos Islands, because the most stressful part about trying to be part of success and be a leader, really, because success is about leading, is having to look
Good.
around the corner. The every time, everybody, your team depends on the fact that you can look and skate to where the puck is gonna be, right? Not where it's at. And that is a very stressful thing that is lonely at the top, and most people don't understand. But and there's certainly everybody who, in the chain of command doesn't understand. It's lonely at the top.
That's why it's the top. The higher, the fewer. I agree with everything you said. I've had a couple businesses, and it's lonely at the top. And everybody, a long time ago, and I'll tell this to the audience. A long time ago, I was outside of my house one time. My neighbor goes, "I want to be like you. I want to be a builder and contractor. You're home at 4 o'clock. You're in great shape." And he was a car salesman. I'm like, "Yeah, it's not all you think." And he goes, "No, you don't understand." I'm like, "No, you don't get this, bro. It's tough. It's very difficult." And then he did it. 2 years later, he came outside and said, "I'm broke and I got no money and I'm paying everybody and I'm getting paid less." And once you get used to being broke, it's all downhill.
So yeah, once you get used to being broke, yeah. But so I started with nothing. I started with debt, college debt, and human capital, like most entrepreneurs. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
not most entrepreneurs. A lot of trust fund babies out there right now. A lot of people that are just being able to make money because there was money to begin with. So and you read a lot of stories, and they're, of course, their biographies or sob stories, right? Born in mangers and stuff. But they're not, when you sort of dig into them. I mean, Walton, he starts talking about flying planes. It's not like, you don't have capital if you can fly a plane. So
Right.
uh I'm just saying that's particularly difficult, to do if you've got that uphill battle on top to beat, which is the access to capital, right?
Well, I learned a long time ago the advantage is the access to capital. I was in '08 and '09, I was a builder and I had a good crew and I wanted to keep them. So we're finding houses to flip. And then I saw an item go up on the tax sale for 102 lots, and their beginning offer was $200,000. And I learned if I had a friend I could call up and say, "Hey, borrow me $200,000." I could have sold those lots 3 years later. They were 2,000 a piece. I could have sold them for $30,000 a piece 2 years later, 2 to 3 years later. Yes,
Right.
that's
Right.
that's a that's a bad day when you realize that access to capital is king.
Well, yeah, it's leverage. It can
Yes,
work backwards as well, right? But you have to make the right choices, which requires risk management. So entrepreneurs add value because there are specific circumstances that you don't get from prices, which are general knowledge, right? Which are, time preferences of other people that are saving, et cetera, et cetera. Information that doesn't exist, right? And risk taking, your risk appetite. And so those are
right.
the three sort of value added things that the entrepreneur brings to the equation, that will drive an excess, uh, you know, demand, money, from
Right.
just the general price level, right? They're going to be able to
Right.
differentiate themselves because they have that specific information. This is Hayek, by the way. This is not just me developing it. That's, Friedrich Hayek. Go back to my economics background.
Um, I also learned that I have adult ADHD, and I'm hyperactive. So they said that I learned a new fact that if you get ADHD, you have a 300% proclivity to becoming an entrepreneur.
Bingo. See, I said it from the first. Maybe it's hypomania. Maybe it's ADHD.
Hmm.
Uh, so who knows? I mean, what is evolutionists telling us then? I mean, is that what the human race is going to be? A whole bunch of people walking around with Adderall or whatever it is that helps
I don't know if you
ADHD
can
people.
turn on.
What? What that is kind of a cool concept, though. As far as I understand it, like it's like overloading. That's what they're doing to bring down the HD, right? It's like they're the circuits are firing so fast that if you give them an overload of firing circuits, they'll be like, okay, I'm tired. I can't do this. That's what I understand.
Well,
ADHD.
it,
That's it. That's all I know. But
it's it it's a way to look at the world differently than most
Mhm.
people. And the best way to describe it is, you know, you have all these tabs open on your computer.
Mm.
That's what ADHD brain does. They do that for a living, and then they
Oh
can
no.
access it quicker. Yeah, I know, but
Oh
then there's
oh
burnout.
no.
Yeah, then you bring
Now
down
now
whatever
I
you need.
as
Now you
as a
bring down
potential
whatever you need in
hypochondriac.
front of you.
Oh, I see.
Well,
I see. I'm
it
I now comply with one of the conditions of me.
oh, you might be more ADHD than you think. You might want to get tested on that. I'm sorry to bring
Right.
this up on the podcast, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, and all the things that you do, you kind of seem like you can pull from the Galapagos. You know, your teaching, your um, financial degrees, and pull down different sects in a day. You know, like most people concentrate on one thing in a day. You know, whatever their job is, car sales, just car sales. That's all they work on. But when it comes to ADHD, you're able to open it, have a lot of tasks open. Like I can walk through a day and have a contractor working on something, me helping somebody, phone calls, and my wife looks at me and like, "How do you do it?" I'm like, "That's just my everyday. That's just
Well,
my
I'll tell you,
everyday."
when I worked in Wall Street, I learned that that was one of the benefits that I had. That was one of the skill sets. Not a skill set because you don't train it, but one of those, like because you're looking at. We were looking at 100 open positions at a time and so you have to like have this capacity to like switch from
Yeah,
one thing to the other,
right,
flawlessly and keep it open sort of in the RAM so you can bring it back up if you have to.
right. So
Um,
ADHD people would be good at that job, really good
yeah,
at that job. You
yeah,
know, so
I agree.
so when you're looking for people, you might want to, if you're hiring, you'd be hiring. Hey, look, an ADHD is one of the requirements of working here.
Exactly. Right. You could do that. You could discriminate only for ADHD people,
Well, it'd just be better
which would
for
be,
them. The implementers go nuts in those positions. Like an implementer just wants to get something done. You know, they start from the beginning of the project to the end. And those are implementers, and those are great people. But you put them in that position, it's short. It's just short circuit.
well, and people will find, that's if you let the people sort of find, if we have a good employment like we have in the US, like a lot of mobility of employment,
Yeah.
people will find what they like to
Yes.
do. They will
Yeah.
gravitate to that easily and
Mm-hmm.
they'll find their price for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's where it's really destructive is in places where they don't have this mobility of labor, and so people are stuck with their jobs, like because they
Yes.
get a job, like they
Or
want
they
to keep it for
don't.
life, right?
Right. Right.
Or they
Right. Right.
don't. I mean, so they're keep looking for jobs, but like if they get a job, they want to keep it for life, even if they're incompetent at it or they're very unhappy with it, which brings out the whole value of their contribution to society. It's a
Right.
tragedy.
It is. You know, I always tell, because we're in America, I don't deal with over the country, but I tell people, do what you do for a living, what you do for free. Whatever you do for free, do that, and you'll end up making great money. I got
and
into
you're
construct
getting paid, like infinite amounts of money. If that's the truth, you're getting paid infinite amount of money.
because you're enjoying it and you don't mind
Yeah.
working late. Like when I was working in construction, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. I worked, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and had no problem with it. But then you can't spend money when you're working that
So,
much.
but you weren't just working; you were the entrepreneur.
Yes, but
Okay,
so I had to
so
teach people, and I wanted to
yeah.
be there. Pulling
Okay,
myself
all right.
out of that role was tough for me
Okay, yeah, yeah.
because
Reinvention
I enjoyed it
is
so much.
tough. Reinvention is so. Okay, that's a great lesson for, and that's even a great lesson that perhaps the younger generations can give us, right? Because they're going through. I don't know what they're going through, but for us, reinvention is has been in our careers had to happen a few times, I bet,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah, exactly.
that's sort of a very resilient characteristic that one has to build into for success. because it
Agreed.
may not be the first one, the first, sort of big hit that you get off the bat that is eventually your success story. It's just
Agreed.
part of the story.
Agreed. Yeah, overcoming adversity is kind of like a forte for me, and I don't know how to say it. Once in a while, I like a good challenge. So someone typically says you can't do this, I go and do it.
Really?
Yeah. This crazy pastor comes up to me, and I was a builder at the time, and he goes, "God wants me to build a house in 6 days." And I looked at him and I go, "What do you do for a living?" He goes, I'm a pastor." "What did you do before you were a pastor?" He goes, "I was a bartender." God told
And
you
you
to build
need
a
and you
house
need
in
a
six
church
days.
in 6 days?
Build a house in six
A
days.
house. Okay.
And for this needy couple. And then I said, "Is God in?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I'm in until God's out." And he goes, "Okay." And we ended up building a house in 6 days in 2000. I think it was 11 or so.
That's crazy. That's good.
It
That's
is
awesome.
crazy. It's crazy. And that's what I love about my life. Typically, whatever someone says you can't do. Like, I flew a
Well,
fighter jet. Someone
good.
someone says you can't fly fighter jets, you gotta be a pilot. I'm like, I'm not a pilot, and I flew.
So you did? That's awesome. See, that's exactly the same thing that drove me to scuba diving at doing depths and caves and caverns
Yeah.
and for exploration purposes.
Another thing that you did that we're gonna have to talk about real quick. So now, what did you do? You got the lowest depth, which is tough because the lower you go, the danger increases multiply. Correct. So
Oh,
like
without a
100 feet
doubt.
is 150 is.
So as a recreational instructor, and any recreational diver can only keep 130 feet max because below that oxygen becomes toxic, or you start owing decompression debt, right? You have to stay under longer in order to off gas the gas that you've had compression. So after 130 feet, we start taking oxygen out of the mix, and we breathe hypoxic gases, which are gases
Isn't
that you
that
breathe
poisonous?
no, the oxygen would be poisonous. So the hypoxic means that you're low on oxygen. So
Okay.
if we breathe them on the surface, we basically what you're breathing, you fall asleep and stuff. So, but at depth, we do that, and we take out the nitrogen and we fill it in with helium. So we're doing trimix, and then you bring all your tanks that you need on the way up to start decompressing because you're going to need a lot of decompression time depending on the profile. So there's an infinite number of profiles to get back up to the surface. So you calculate those on the surface and you try to replicate those and then come back and say, we lived and nothing happened. And that's good data to bring back because after 130 feet, the data drops off. We have about 5 million divers a year or something now to 130, but after 130, it goes to zero at levels of 330 feet where I used to dig around, which
What's
was
the
cool.
deepest you've been?
330, 100 meters.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
330. What were you in? You weren't in a scuba outfit.
Scuba
You had to be
outfit,
in a machine.
completely self-contained, drift
Was that
diving underneath Cozumel, looking at corals and sponges at the continental shelf. Get down there, do your mission, and come back up.
how
And
long did that take you?
an hour and a half. But the thing is, we were also proving that we decided to prove the decompression gas, the first decompression gas as air, because we got to 300 and came back up the next day, the day before, because you go in steps, because like you said, they're every 30 feet, every atmosphere adds tremendous complexity. Like every one of these regulators could go wrong, like first stage, second stage on all the tanks, and we die. Or
And we died.
yeah. And you have things go wrong as you go down. You have accidents and stuff, so people freak out. So by the time we got to the end, there was only two of us, and we came. So
We
the day
started with
before,
three.
we started with six. So five, sorry, five team and the safety diver. So we're getting down there, and we decide because the day before we'd done 300 and bounced to 120 with air, and nothing had happened. So we're like, dude, let's do the limit of air, which is 130 on the way up from our 330 feet. Let's try it. I mean, we did a 120. We took air at 120, which is risky. So let's do it again. Let's do it at 130. Different experience altogether. So we got this buzz, and we were both feeling it when we came back up at 130. And my buddy freaked out, so he went back to his back gas. So he got off the program, but I stayed on because I just felt really, really drunk. So I proved that you could do it, but you'd have to pay a cost. Which
What's the
is
cost?
that punch drunkenness, that narcosis, or
Okay.
it was really an isobaric counter diffusion effect, because it was just like this fax went would go over your body, and you'd go into this. So if you can pay that cost, then you can go to 100 meters and come back to 130 with air and survive. So there you go. I added that to science.
Okay, that sounds crazy, but cool.
But
What
plus a couple of femurs, the things that we found.
human bodies?
Femurs from people that had fallen cenotes in the in the
Wow.
Yucatan
Okay.
Peninsula.
So, what is one of the biggest challenges in your career that you had to overcome? What is we talked about that a
Failure.
little bit earlier. Failure?
Failure. Without a doubt.
Okay.
Failure, loss of financial, um, recognizing just how stupid and avoidable some of the mistakes that I made as an already seasoned, salty mariner supposed to think. So I think that how silly one can still make mistakes and trip over oneself.
Well,
So failure and
that's
and,
that's
and
pretty
picking back.
easy. What are you talking about?
Failing's pretty
Falling
easy,
down
yeah.
is easy.
Right,
Getting
right.
back up is hard.
Exactly. So what has been and then taking a lesson from that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Taking a
Learning from the
lesson,
mistakes. If
right?
you don't
And
learn from your
and
mistakes, you're gonna make them over and over again.
and the so why is it also one of the most difficult things is because it is ego crushing.
Yeah.
You're at the top of your game, or you think you are. You've outsmarted you've looked around that corner, and wow, you hit a wall. You were smart for a while. Now you're not smart, right? So that's
I
that's
always,
that's it. That's it. Psychologically, it takes a lot to get back up and be like, poof, poof, at it again.
yeah, that I agree with. I've heard a lot of people that have fallen and gotten back up, and they get back up to where they were before relatively quickly, within years. Like it might take someone 20 years to get to $10 million, and then they fall, and then they get back up within 2 years because they know how to do it.
Yes, but so it also has to do with how you reevaluate your life, right? What values you set. It's like $10 million. Yeah, that was cool, but you know what? Do I really want to like slave at it to get to 10 and then be like, now I'm just back to where I was. So now I got to get to 20 to really make up for the lost time. You know why? Dude, you got 3 left over, 5 left over. Go for it. Do something else. And
Well, that's hard for people.
it is.
What's the number one fear in life?
Okay, me, asteroids, man, or aliens.
Really? Right. I like that. Number one fear is public speaking,
Really,
and to the point of fear of death from public speaking.
really, that's
It blows my mind. It
amazing.
is 66%. The last time I checked a few years ago, it was like at 66%.
It's not aliens then.
No,
Oh,
no. There's
oh.
it's in there. Aliens are in there.
Now it is. Now you know it
Aliens
is.
are.
Yeah. So wow. So I should be petrified
No, you shouldn't.
because I don't have the whole audience, but I will in the future.
It's it's, it's certain people have. Most people have it. The people that public speak, I do some public speaking too, and it's really just for people. People are so afraid of the unknown. What I've noticed, they don't know
Oh,
how they're going to receive,
natural.
how they look, right? And they've never
Okay.
done it. That's terrifying. Does that make sense? In anything
Yeah,
you do,
sure. You grow, you get better at it. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
got to
yeah.
you got to do a little
Yeah.
bit, and you got to do a little bit
Stage
more, and then
fright.
you got to do a little bit more, and then you got to do a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
The people in
Yeah. And
acting classes love it. They love being on stage.
even then, like, so I'm a professor,
Hmm.
even then you gotta realize that, man, I bombed that one. That was like one of the worst lectures I've ever given. Like, Jesus, I am better than this,
But bombing helps. As weird as that sounds. I I
So-
competed I compete in brick breaking at the U.S. Open. I'm actually going back next month, and I learned something when I win. I consistently win. I didn't learn anything. When I got second, third, fourth, and fifth, I learned something. You don't
Good.
learn anything at the top.
Well, you're expected to teach,
Correct. But you don't
you
learn
know?
anything. When you lose, that's when you learn.
Right. And
You
and
know?
and so one has to admire how somebody else got there and what did you miss to get there. And sometimes you just realize, I mean, especially when you're doing this entrepreneurship where you got a whole bunch of things, you got to realize, well, that's not my forte. That's not my
Right.
forte. That's just not my strong suit. Somebody else has that strong suit. Go for it. That's also talent seeking when you've got teams of people working. It's like, hey man, you're better at putting up, drywall than I am. Dude, that's awesome. That's like the guy you want, right? That's not the person you want to exclude, by any means, because you
You
know that you can go further.
I always teach that you hire your weakness or partner with your weakness. I'm a visionary and I need an implementer. And when you put those two together, it's amazing business.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. Implementing is half the battle.
It's the battle that I'm not good at. I
As a
can
builder,
create
that
and
seems
support.
that seems that seems that seems difficult. I mean, you're a hands-on, type of guy.
I was hands-on and then I was hands-off and it was just organizing people. And the biggest problem when it comes to building is creating the vision. Like you have a plan, right? And you have to deal with a customer, right? I always build houses for people. And
Mhm.
I have a 3x5 card of what this house is going to look like. They have a 3x5 card of what this house is going to look like. Before I start, I got to make sure our two cards look exactly the same. And some people don't have vision. Like if I talk to somebody and say, hey, this wall is going to be 20 feet tall, 10 feet or 20 feet wide, 10 feet tall. It's going to have three windows on it. One's going to be 3 foot by 4 foot. That one's going to be 5 foot by 6 foot on the sides. Not a lot of people can vision that wall. And then when you frame, yeah, yeah, VR, right? VR.
That
It
stuff
makes
is
it makes it so much easier.
insane.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. One
You
of
can
our
walk through a house that isn't even built yet.
one of our strategic alliances with and potential shareholder, like we had a shareholding in something else together, does VR stuff, and he's doing VR stuff now for NATO. I mean, that stuff
Nice.
can get nuts in
Yes.
how good you can like walk through, like build, design, et cetera, et cetera.
Now
Taken care of.
with AI, it's going to get worse. Like you can't tell, you can't differentiate with
Yeah,
AI.
with AI, you're gonna be able to talk to it while you're looking. Be like, okay, change that, and
Right.
move that wall. You know what? I didn't like
Pinch
this. Give
move.
me, give me the professional design. Give me the friendly design. Whatever, it's like,
You can you can today take a picture of your house, outside of your house, and then AI will landscape it for you with different themes of landscaping. And you can pick this landscaping, hand that picture to a landscaper. Done.
wow,
It is crazy. That's
it
just the outside
is.
with a picture. With a picture.
No, it's crazy. It is really crazy. As an academic, though, I can tell you that I do find holes, like loopholes, like it hallucinates a lot. Like still, like you ask it some questions and you know your stuff, so you're like expect like there's some stuff that just should come. It's like, and they're like, what? Dude, and you get on, you're like, no, no, you're wrong there. He goes, oh yes, forgive me, thank you for adding, and it keeps bringing information up. But in creativity like that, I mean, just bringing, and it's a revolution that we don't even understand yet,
No,
like what this thing is going to do. It's going
no.
to drive everything, which is amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
What do you think? You're an economist, right? So
Yes.
I got a question for you. Do you think with AI and robots in our lifetime will take over labor?
Yes, they already are.
I mean, take
They
over.
already
Like
are.
we're doing labor.
Oh, well, they
So
are
can
already.
we
So
build?
yes.
I mean, take over, like complete. Like a robot will plant the seeds of the farm. That'll water the crops. It'll the robots, and then it'll harvest, and then another robot will bring it to the market. The other robots will build the market and display the food. So
And
the
we'll live in communism in a sense, or
well
somebody
we're there's
owns the means of production
well
through the
is somebody
robots.
gonna is
But
somebody gonna
who's
own
gonna
it?
eat? Yeah.
Everybody's
So
gonna eat. It's gonna have to be universal income, correct?
okay.
Right? There has to be universal income. It's
Mhm,
a even Elon Musk said it once this robot thing takes off, it's going to be universal income.
mhm.
So eventually, I think the only thing, and this is just me personally, I'm glad I'm talking to an economist. What will destroy the money system? I learned that in Star Trek and Next Generation, and the replicator. As soon as we can turn energy into solid matter, we can make diamonds, gold, dollar bills. Then it'll be destroyed. There's no
We could already
shortage.
make diamonds. We could already make diamonds. Yeah. So
Good,
something
true,
else will
good point.
become shortage. Something else will become a shortage. Money has been a million things. Milton Friedman, in his book Monetary Mischief, really calls it the monetary gardens of monetary innovation. Oh, sorry, the gardens of monetary innovation, because there's been so many iterations. I mean, salt. The word salary comes from salt. Um, what will be money on Mars? I've written about this. What will be money on Mars? I mean, you're not going to bring gold.
Air.
You're not going to bring paper. Okay, air's not a bad idea if you can produce it. In relative quantities. Except air is not excludable. You can't exclude really people from air. So it's a public good. And so I've said that it's going to be water credits on top of it all, because you're gonna have
That's
to
true too.
you're gonna have to, like, if you're going to go to Mars, I need to be able, from Earth, be able to buy water credits of physical water on Mars that I can convert, right? For survivability. I can buy credits for my grandchildren and pass them on to my grandchildren. That becomes a currency on Earth that eventually is the currency of Mars. Anyway,
Yeah, I didn't think about that. What's the currency on a different planet? That's a crazy thought.
yeah, that's the type of thought I work with in economics. I work with money, with the denationalization of money. That's
What
what
do
I
you
write about.
what do you think about our current economy in the United States?
So we're the most powerful economy without a doubt, for many reasons, but we're the most powerful economy because we own the world's currency. So everybody uses our currency. Our currency has value in use, right? India imports 5% of its imports from the United States, but actually, bills 89% of its imports in dollars. And that's partly because we have the best contracting system, because New York law is the best law to resolve disputes with in terms of assets. That's not just. So our current economic system, the problem is the spending. The problem is the deficit, right? That's it.
Good.
So
Here,
that's
I got it.
it's the nitty gritty. So any bill that increases the deficit is just, if you're going to lower taxes for more deficit, then it's demagoguery. It's not fixing absolutely anything. That's it.
Here's
But
the
but
question
but
for you.
here's the issue, though. We're going to be able to continue to do that. We've weaponized this thing. Why we weaponize it? Because we realize that other people demand our money, regardless of what we do. There's nobody that can knock us out. We have what's called the exorbitant privilege. Valerita saying, came up with this word, after the Bretton Woods meeting, where we gave the dollar the exorbitant privilege. And then in 71, Nixon said, guys, you know what? I'm going to close the gold window. So the dollar is just a piece of paper. But since everybody uses a piece of paper, then it has use value. And so we're the ones that can print and send it abroad and not have problems with our prices. And we can actually win from other people using our money and bringing serious. So as long as we're the only political entity that has this power, we're going to create an imbalance, which is dangerous for humanity. I also write about this. This is the problem for humanity. So the way we can balance that, and this is, I base this also on Robert Mundell, the Nobel Prize theory, is we need to dollarize the world. The world is already dollarized to a great extent. For instance, The highest proportion of $100 bills physically is held by Russians. The second highest proportion is held by Argentinians. So we don't even have our own bills. So, and then I just gave you India's example. So the reality, let's just like bring that to reality, dollarize the word. But then what I suggest we need to do is expand the Federal Reserve System, which was built in terms of various central banks in different regions. And we can build that
Mhm.
around the world, and that would solve a lot of problems. A lot of problems, and it would coordinate trade. It would do a whole bunch of things, and we'd just get rid of all these intermediary little central banks, which are not adding value anywhere in the world.
Yeah, they're just passing paper. What do you think? Our debt is our biggest problem. I agree with you 1,000%. What happens when it gets out of hand? I mean, we're getting at the point where we're not going to be able to
We
service the
default.
debt. Okay, then what happens then?
We don't. We so here's the problem with defaulting. We've already defaulted. Every time you inflate the dollar, it's a default. You're getting a less valuable dollar, so it's a technical default.
Right.
So what happens then is we keep printing.
Well, then what happens to inflation?
So we don't have inflation because the dollar is still demanded outside of our.
Is that what Trump's trying to do with the tariffs? To create
No,
income from coming in than going out?
no. I think he just has a really wrong vision of how economics works. To be honest with you, I think the tariffs are just look. I'm not in the minority here. I mean, I'm not. Tariffs don't work. We spent 100 years learning this lesson and then unwinding it through the General Agreement of Tariffs and Trades and then the World Trade Organization. And once we got China into the World Trade Organization, poverty decreased. We halved extreme poverty in the world by in 20 years. So clearly trade is the way to I go back to DB Ricardo. We so much theory supports this and empirical evidence that trade is the way to go. Trade is what
Trade
makes you
is
and me
trade is the way
rich.
to go. What
End
about the what
story.
about the what about the trade deficit? So we were getting tariffed 32% from
Right.
China, and we were tariffing them 2%.
Who cares? We were still buying their stuff because they were financing it for us really cheaply. Thank you very much. It's the capital account that works. It's not you will always have a trade deficit. You will always have a trade deficit in any situation of tariffs or non-tariffs. You will still have a trade deficit. We could put tariffs to zero, but if we buy more from China than China buys from us, it's a trade deficit. So tariffs are not the trade tariffs. Look, so you know who pays those tariffs? The
Us.
Chinese do. No,
Well, we do
the
too.
32% tariffs. Hold on. The 32% tariffs that the Chinese put on our goods, it's the Chinese paying for them. We're not paying for them.
Correct.
We're getting
But
Chinese savings to be able to buy their stuff cheaply. Thank you very much.
gotcha. Well,
What they're
they make
doing,
me
like,
feel a lot
if
better.
what we would like is like, hey, but dude, bring them down because your people are going to buy more of our stuff. But we're doing fine still because we're getting your money cheaply. So hey, thanks for that. But it would make us richer if you would, and it would make your people better off. But if you want to tax your people, I can't tell you what to do. And what we went and did was tax ourselves.
Well, this is a business ploy. I've used this ploy before. When you start a meeting, you want to start it in your favor. So the first thing he did before he even talked to China was increase the tariff to equal to theirs. And once he did that, the markets dropped in China. It
So
dropped because we're like 50% of their revenue. What's the percentage of American purchases are their revenue per year?
I have no idea, but a
It's
significant amount.
close,
We're no, but
right?
regardless, so we are the biggest consumer in the world. We're like 36 trillion or whatever dollars, and they're at 34 or something.
Right. And so by starting that conversation off, I noticed that they stopped the tariffs for 90 days to have an agreement to make it maybe even better for the Chinese people to get an equal
Really,
tariff, even if
like
it's
the
five,
best.
10%.
Forget equal tariffs. Zero tariffs. Like
That
zero
would be,
tariffs. Everybody
there you
zero
go.
tariffs.
There you
That's
go.
it.
That'd be brilliant.
If that is the end of this whole thing,
Then
then
he did a good
hallelujah.
job.
then
Right.
hallelujah, baby. You know what I mean? But let's communicate that
Zero,
from the
even
start. You
zero,
lose
zero.
nothing. You leave, of course, zero. Of course, zero. If trade is good, impediments to trade are
Trade is
bad.
good. Yeah, that's true. If
Impediments
trade
to
is
trade are
good, then
bad.
zero's great.
Yeah, that's what you want. I mean, that would be. I mean, if the guy had started saying, "Hey, guys, zero," and until we get zero, 140, you know, then I get it.
That's
But
he wrote a book.
but
He wrote a
taco
book. The
trading
art,
this thing, taco trading means you don't know what you were doing.
right. His book, Art of Trade, The Art of the Deal, is basically that. You got to put yourself at the advantage when you come into a meeting, because
Yeah, but
he can come down, but he
we
needs
were
them to come
already
down
at an
too.
advantage. This is what he doesn't understand. We were already at an advantage because we had lower tariffs than them. They were
But
taxing themselves.
if we had equal or zero,
But the tariffs are not the issue. It's the capital account. It's how you finance. Once again, we go to zero. There's still a trade deficit. You go to zero. There's still a trade deficit. It doesn't
yeah, but the
matter if
tariffs
we
is zero.
equal the tariffs, right? It's
Does
not.
it?
It's how we finance that deficit that really makes the difference, which is the capital account. And in the capital account, we're fine because we're the greatest economy in the world. Why throw a monkey wrench in
China's
that?
catching up.
Yes, yes. You know why? Because they got into the World Trade Organization and they
Yeah, there you
dropped
go.
their tariffs. And they kept dropping their tariffs.
There you go. Well, hope we can get it to zero.
So yeah, so I'm not in the minority here. This is the self-inflicted wound. This is the most stupid thing, and then you go and you tackle your way through it, which means that you did not know what you were doing. Because if you even play the game theory on this one, all you have to do is say from the get-go, I need you to go to zero and zero. None of this equalization that makes sense. The only equalization that makes sense is a zero zero.
Yeah,
That's the only
agreed.
one that makes sense.
Agreed.
And that
Agreed.
still that
Agreed.
still that still has a trade deficit. So the whole conceptualization of a fight against the trade deficit already tells you that they don't know what they're talking about.
Hmm. I agree with that too. I've noticed a lot of people in financing generally don't have a lot of money, and I was like, you're in this business, you should be doing this, and then they just, like, it's really kind of crazy, really kind of crazy. Hey, listen,
It's insane.
we've talked about a lot, and I've had a great time with you, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Wrapping up
Michael.
the
Me too.
interview. What do you got planned? What exciting plans you got for the next 6 to 12 months?
So I'm off to Galapagos next week.
How long are you there for?
I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. I'm going to be 2 weeks in Quito and Guayaquil, also meeting with government and meeting with the universities, and I'm going to be delivering a lot of lectures. We're building a network because what we're proposing is the autonomy of the Galapagos Islands. Ultimately, these guys got to take care of themselves. They're the ones that need to fix it, take care of it, and live off of it.
Take
Um,
ownership.
Exactly. So we promote the agency of the islands, and they're all for that. But now we need to. Okay, so now that we realize that that's the path, then what does that take, right? It takes. So we're starting a study on the fiscal independence of Galapagos and things like that. So that's the exciting part.
Awesome.
Next 6 months, yeah.
That is exciting. That is
So we need to
exciting.
raise cash on that. So go to www.freegalapagos.org. We're a 501(c)(3), so any money that you put on that goes, you get a taxes deductibility, and please, yeah, help us. I mean, it's the Galapagos is certainly a great, petri dish to humanity that you should come to.
Awesome. Great. Hey, listen, you segue right into the perfect spot. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
LinkedIn is the best way.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's
All right,
where I'm
beautiful.
keeping most of my LinkedIn or Substack. I do both. I mean, I think that's where the conversation really is more meaningful than anywhere else.
I agree. You talked about Substack real quick. Could you give the people, right before you take out, before we say goodbye, tell everybody about what you told me earlier today about Substack?
So I published there. I don't know. I can't remember what I told you about Substack.
So
Or
you can publish a work. You can
Oh, Slink.
User
Slink.com, my service, software as a service company. So Slink.com is the 1-800 number, the equivalent of the 1-800s to telephones. It's going to be the word that leads you to whatever, the combination that leads you to whatever word is more powerful to your advertising message. And then that word will be able to have subslinks, and you will be able to sell and rent the slinks and the subslinks. So you'll be able to monetize good words, powerful words, and own your words, basically.
That sounds like a winner. All right. Dr. Francisco, thank you very much for being on. I really do appreciate it. You're professor, doctor. I might have said that the wrong way.
No, yeah, ABD. I don't have my doctorate yet, but yeah, that you're not deceptive.
All right. Beautiful. Hey, listen, thanks a lot for being on, and we'll let you go. It's been a great podcast. I can't wait to hear the feedback on the comments. Thanks a lot for
Thank you, Michael.
everything.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.